Me and my mother-in-law, we don't see eye to eye on almost everything. Well, guys, can you imagine how surprised I was when she tells my husband that my baby inside of my stomach is not her boy's? I'm a cheater. Well, you know what? I'm not cheating, and I'm not doing a stupid DNA test because I have nothing to prove to anybody, not even my husband, the mama boy.
Hey guys, I'm OP. I usually don't do things like this, that I'd go online and ask for feedback on what's happening in my life. However, I feel this situation constitutes me to do so because things have been stressful and very, very difficult. My mother-in-law, is 51, is trying to convince my husband Nick and me that I'm pregnant with someone else's kid. Yeah, I'll tell you why she thinks that because it'll sound too confusing otherwise. Nick and I met when we were in high school. We've been neighbors since we were little kids. However, we weren't really friends when we were kids. Nick and I have always been really different from each other. He was the quiet, shy kid, while I was the kid who would never be alone. I've always loved socializing and making friends. It was something that brought me a lot of joy, so even though Nick and I were in the same school, we didn't really talk. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I tried my best to be friends with him and interact with him, but he barely responded. Being so shy, and no matter how much of a social butterfly I am, I'm not going to waste my energy talking to someone if they're not putting in any effort. Not only that, but he wasn't even responding to me if I tried to initiate a conversation, so I just straight up gave up. Skip to high school now. We got assigned a project together in one of our classes, and honestly, I was dreading it. Because how I would talk to someone about a project if they would not even reply to me. But I guess he changed as a person because he was actually talking to me. We hit it off instantly after that, and in a few months we became almost what they call inseparable. Well, I mean, anytime somebody would ask us where we were or what we were doing, chances were that we were hanging out with each other. My parents loved Nick and absolutely adored him. They were always gushing about how we should start dating because he was the only perfect guy I needed. Well, in general, it was, however, I feel like Nick's mom did not really approve of this. When Nick was born, his father had been well and alive, but shortly after that he developed a lung disease and unfortunately passed away when we were in middle school. So Nick's mom was the only parent. I don't know if she had become so stuck up and protective about her son after she became a single mom or if it was just a general personality issue. Still, I feel like she thought no girl would ever come close to treating Nick the way she did. She pampered him like he was a little kid. Even though we were both in high school then, she'd make sure he was sitting where he wanted to sit even if it was inconveniencing people, and constantly called him to make sure where he was and how he was doing even though eventually he would go home to her. Things like that bothered me a lot, but did not bother me as much until I realized she disliked me. Every time I was at her house, she would try different ways to subtly ignore me or insult me, constantly comparing herself to me. Then she'd try to convince Nick that no one could take care of him like she could. At one point, she insisted that I was selfish and did not care about anybody, because I asked Nick to wash the dishes. At that point, we were dating, so we would always be at each other's house. Nick always told me to ignore his mom and not take anything she said to heart. But it was hard. Whenever she'd be around, I had to do all the work because his mom would claim I was lazy if I made Nick do anything. It got to the point where I was going to break up with him, and I did for a few weeks even. But those 2 months were so hard for both of us. We loved each other so much, and it was disappointing how one person who wasn't even involved in our relationship showed up and ruined the entire progress. Nick even tried talking to his mom about the situation, told her to stay out of it, but still, she got angry at him and then tried to make me the bad guy in the situation as well, talking about how I must have manipulated him into talking to her and turning him against his own mom. Even though he tried explaining that it was not my fault, I didn't say anything to him. She would not budge and then concluded that I was trying to turn her son against him. We got back together after realizing that we truly loved each other a lot and did not want anyone else coming in between our relationship. So, 2 years ago, we both graduated from college and decided to get married. Obviously, like every other situation, his mom was against the entire thing, but we didn't care to pay any attention to what she was trying to tell us. The worst thing about the entire situation is that I did not realize Nick was returning to his mother and her way of doing things. So I started realizing when I got pregnant with his child 1 year after, everything was going great, and we even moved out so we would not have to live with his mom again. However, guys, when I got pregnant, she insisted that she stayed over. Obviously, I said no, because there's no way I could handle staying alone in the house with her when Nick was away at work. I could be at work too, but I was on maternity leave, so I didn't have to go to the office in person. However, she kept insisting, and Nick felt terrible, so he agreed that she could come over for a week or so. At that point, I was tired of fighting it, so you know what, I said, okay, if she comes over, but she needs to leave in 2 weeks because that's how long I could handle her. Then comes the day of my baby shower. That's when every single thing went to crap. I was getting dressed, feeling pretty, and just in a good mood when Nick came into my room with my mother-in-law, looking guilty like he does when he's fallen to another one of his mother tactics. The news I got shocked me to the core. Apparently, my mother-in-law thinks I cheated on Nick, and that this is not his child. First, guys, that's absolutely ridiculous, because Nick knows how much I love him. Even my mother-in-law knows I love him very much because I take every opportunity to show it. The fact that there's still doubt in their head after everything I've done for him is wild. The worst part about this entire situation was that they thought I would be hard to handle, so they made this a legal matter and brought a lawyer. There were guests in the living room waiting for me to come out and celebrate my baby shower with me while my husband and his mom were sitting in my room legally, forcing me to get a DNA test done to show that the child is actually his, and that I did not go around having coitus with another guy while Nick was at work or away. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I have not felt this unloved in a really long time. Now, I'm contemplating if I should just give Nick a divorce and move on because this entire situation, it's just like the high school and college days that are happening all over again. And I genuinely don't know if I can go through with it. I feel like I'm always going to be treated this badly emotionally if I'm in this family. So I do need to find a way to get out before it gets too much to me and I lose my head to insanity. What do you guys think that I should do? I'll update you. Update number 1. The test results, they're back. Before I tell you guys the results, I need you to realize the sheer amount of mental stress that this family's caused me. They have never considered that I'm a person, too, who has feelings and emotions and might be hurt by their actions. The only thing that they care about is that they need everything according to their way. If they think it's right, then it's right. If they feel it's wrong, then it's wrong. I'm so sick and tired of this family that I haven't talked to Nick in a while. Ever since I was forced to get a paternity test, I realized that Nick was never going to take me seriously or ever going to take my side in a conversation either. I could not live in a family where no one or even my husband supported me. That was just something I could not do, which is why I was getting a divorce. Okay, now back to the results. Obviously, the child was Nick's. I knew it would be because I did not cheat on him. The entire week, Nick and his moms were shoving all these legal procedures and laws in my face to force me to get a paternity test and prove that I did not cheat. I know for a fact that his mom was hoping that I did actually cheat on him, so she could prove her point, but how I'm wrong for her son and how she was right about me not being suitable. I wanted to publicly embarrass them by telling them the child was Nick's, and telling everyone how they made me feel like a cheater and an outcast in what was supposed to be my own family. Anyways, Nick realized that he was wrong and apologized as soon as he saw the results. I was still pretty mad about the entire situation, so I made him earn the apology. But obviously that did not work in my favor either because his mom did not think that we needed to earn it. For her, she thought I was being dramatic and was making a big deal out of nothing. So I told Nick I would not accept any of his apologies until his mom also apologized to me. Not just for this situation, but for every single time she scolded me and made me feel worthless. Also, for how she was currently treating me. She thinks I'm gaslighting her son into making myself the excellent guy and her the bad guy. That did not make any sense because I did not do anything to be the bad guy. I was simply existing and being happy about having a child. But for some reason, everybody kept thinking that I was a cheater and then got legal services involved to try to make me prove that I did not cheat. She did not apologize and gave Nick crap for apologizing as well, so I fought with her. I knew I hurt Nick when I did that, but I've had enough of their dramas and caring for their feelings. Now, I don't give a crap about what's happening and what needs to be done because the only thing I care about is now the fact that I protect myself mentally and physically from these people. No one else is going to care about me or my baby except for myself. Update 2. I finally talked to my lawyer. Initially, it was the same lawyer who was hired to expose me for cheating. All by my great mother-in-law. I got so sure about this entire thing because I was going through an adamant time trying to regain my self-respect after my mother-in-law had tarnished it. What happened was that my mother-in-law would not agree to apologize for me for what she did. Not only that, but for some reason she had discussed the issue with all her friends and family, so everybody knew that I was being suspected of cheating on her boy. I don't know why she would tell every single person that she could that I was getting a paternity test to prove that Nick was the father, but she did. Well, I told her to stop telling everyone until anything was confirmed because we live in a really small town. This basically means that anything one person knows, the other people will know too. Not only that, but the entire town keeps on playing Chinese whisper with everyone because no gossip ever stays within one person's home. Knowing that it would tarnish my reputation badly, she decides to go tell friends and family that all of this was going on. Then she made herself the victim. So everyone started giving me nasty eyes whenever I went out, and they'd treat my mother-in-law like she was a fallen angel. It bugged me a lot, but I never said anything because I didn't want to make the situation worse. And it's not like Nick was helping either, so, since he was such a big mama's boy. Either way, I decided that I would humiliate them the same way and show everyone that I was not the bad guy. It was this weird family that was incredibly annoying and made everyone feel like an outcast. When I first started thinking about this entire situation, I thought I could legally attack them. They defamed me in front of the entire town and then decided that it wasn't enough. So they forced me to get a paternity test even though I kept claiming that the child was Nick's. I had enough evidence in the situation that would help me win the case. However, when I contacted the same lawyer they used when they were unsure about the baby, he said that he could not help me in this case because he was so connected with my opponents and there would have been a bias problem involved there as well. I don't know if he's lying about the entire thing, considering that this was someone my mother-in-law personally knew, but hey, I just decided not to stay too long and hung up on it. I then contacted a different lawyer who reassured me that he could help me. I wanted them to fight back, thinking that they could win the entire thing, but then ended up losing and realizing that they were no match for me. So, right now, I've started finalizing my divorce and making sure everything's going smoothly, and according to the plan, the lawyer's also pretty good, so everything's going perfectly, but there's one thing that's been bothering me for a really long time now. That's the fact that Nick's been acting really suspicious these days. I mean, he used to work this way all the time, but then for some reason it got worse in recent weeks, when he's just been acting super weird. I don't know how to explain it, but if it's what I think it is, I'm going to be so mad. Well, after that, there's no way I'm going to stay with that piece of crap willingly. Update number 3. Oh my gosh, you guys, things have been absolutely insane the past few days or even weeks. Do you guys remember how I was telling you that Nick is acting very differently and very suspicious as well? I don't know that he was acting suspiciously for a huge reason. Basically what happened was that Nick started being very avoidant randomly. I mean, it was like one day he was fine and then the other he was ignoring me or giving me one-word responses. Initially, I thought he was mad at me because I was still not talking to his mother. I was being cranky with him as well since none of them had apologized to me the way I thought they would. But when I asked him if that was the reason he was acting so distant, he said no. It was like his phone was much more interesting than I was. He was constantly on it and I did not know what he was doing. When I tried asking him, he would just avoid me again, and I knew I had to do something about it because it was going to be out of control pretty soon. I had a divorce and the child lining up for me. I could not let anything go away. So I needed to solve this. Basically, what encouraged me to take action against this entire thing was the fact that I suspected now he's cheating on me. Now, the thing about this entire situation was the fact that I was the one who was accused of cheating on Nick in the first place, which is why we were in this mess. Now, if Nick was the one cheating on me, things would go in reverse, and karma would indeed hit them because I would not go easy on them. I've decided to make their lives as miserable as I could, which meant that I needed every piece of evidence I could find. Nick cheating on me would be a situation that would lead me to victory, so I needed to take advantage of that. So here's what I did. After the whole drama of me cheating on Nick, he felt guilty that I had to suffer so much because of him. He kept apologizing and telling me that he would do anything to earn my forgiveness. So I told him that he needed to show me his phone to show that he trusted me and that he'd never leave me hanging again. In the spur of the moment, he gave me his phone password to show that he trusted me and that he would do anything for me. So I think he gave it to me because he knew I had no interest in checking his phone or going through anything. I just always thought these things were an invasion of privacy, so I never really paid attention to them. This time, I decided to take full advantage of the situation, and I went through Nick's phone. I did that while he was in the washroom taking a shower. Nick usually takes long showers, so I knew I would not be caught doing it. As soon as he went to the shower, I opened his phone and went through all of his messages. Sure enough, he was cheating on me. And right there was obvious evidence about the entire situation as well. He was chatting with this girl, her name was Sarah, and they were being very romantic and cringing at each other too. It felt like I was reading a teenager's chat and not a mature married man. I knew I had to get proof of this somehow, so I took screenshots as much as I could and sent them to myself before deleting them off the phone. Not the text, but the screenshots I sent to myself. Update number 4. My plan succeeded. When I tell you what I did, you might think I went overboard and should not have handled it this way. But before you guys say or think anything like that, I would like to remind you guys my mother-in-law also insulted me in front of everyone else, to the point where I could not even go grocery shopping in this little town without people getting me nasty glances or just trying to see what I look like. Now that that's out of the way, let me tell you guys what I did. First of all, I finalized the divorce. I could not handle it anymore and needed some sort of start, to this entire process. Divorce also takes a long time, and honestly, I need it done as soon as possible, so yes, I started the process. The most significant part of the plan is how I made sure everyone convinced that I'm a big cheater now knows how much of a cheater Nick is. I exposed Nick's truth to his mother, and showed her all the pictures and the text messages that they sent each other. Nick was also there at the time, and that was the first time he found out that I knew. The shock on his face, it was very evident because his mouth was hanging open. His eyes were as wide as a saucer, and my mother-in-law was no different. She could not believe her son did precisely what she blamed me doing. Then the thing I was expecting not to happen happened. Honestly, I was expecting her to argue with me and tell me I was spreading lies to defame his name and take revenge on her son. However, to some extent, I guess she knew what her son was doing because she did not stop me or argue with me or anything like that. Instead, she begged me not to let anyone know what Nick was doing. However, that was quite literally my opposite plan. Still, I did not let her know that was my plan and made her think I agreed with her. Then came my actual idea. My mother-in-law had all her friends over at our home because she was still hanging out there for some reason. It was so annoying. I was fighting with them on a regular basis. I just wanted her to leave. And she wasn't. Anyways, so now that her friends were over at our house, I knew this was my opportunity to make things better. I went to the living room, where all of them were gathered, and as soon as I stepped foot in there, they went quiet and started looking at me. I took that sign as my cue and made the saddest face before letting my words spew. I acted innocent and asked them if the reason they were so tense right now was because my mother-in-law was showing them how Nick cheated on me. As soon as I said that, gasps were heard throughout the room. They could not believe this was happening, and my mother-in-law looked like she was fuming as she glared at me and signaled me to leave the room instantly. I did, but everyone could see that the tiny smile I had as I realized I finally got them back for what they did to me. Final update. Hey guys, so the divorce, it's done. It's been finalized, and I'm now finally away from this dysfunctional family. My husband and mother-in-law are now begging me to take them back, but there's no way I'll do it. Let me tell you what exactly they're begging me to take them back for. Basically, what happened was that while we were finalizing the divorce and everything my lawyer was going through, the logistics of how we were going to divide everything and go about, because there were a lot of things that were in my name. The home, especially. I didn't even know the house was under my name 100%. I don't know, consider me stupid or whatever you want to say about me, but I forgot that the house was under my name. I remembered the house was mine when the lawyer told me that I would have it once the divorce was finalized. The reason I'm going to keep the house and kick out my mother-in-law and husband is that my child is going to come pretty soon, and I want there to be enough space and freedom for my child to grow up without any problems at all. I know that if they're going to be involved in my child's life, they're going to cause me a lot of problems, mainly because my mother-in-law thinks that she's the best at everything and I can't really care for anyone. She even told me once that there's no way I was going to be able to take our child because I cannot even take proper care of my husband. So, after I changed the locks and hired a lawyer, my husband and mother-in-law, they began bombarding me with text messages, phone calls, and all sorts of tearful voicemails, begging me to let them return. The audacity, right? Apparently, their grand plan to start a new life together failed, and they were desperate to return to my home. Well, as you might expect, I wasn't having it. I decided to record everything, and boy, was that a smart decision. The voicemails had a mixture of apologies promising to change and even odd love promises. Meanwhile, the texts range from pleading emojis to awkward attempts at humor. Fast forward a couple of weeks and I get served with a notice. My mother-in-law suing me for unlawful eviction and emotional distress. I cannot believe it, really. I quickly consulted with my lawyer, who reassured me that everything was on my side legally. We gathered evidence of the deceitful plan, the voicemails begging to be let me back in, and even recorded a few calls where they admitted to their wrongdoings. I was sure I was going to win. There's no way I wasn't going to. The court date arrived, and there they were, facing the judge, and my lawyer presented the evidence, emphasizing how their actions constituted a clear breach of trust and attempted fraud. The judge did not seem impressed by my mother-in-law's crocodile tears. Long story short, the case was dismissed, and I exited the courtroom with a satisfied smirk. Not only did I get to keep my house, but the judge also said that my ex-husband and mother-in-law should consider themselves fortunate that I did not sue them for the emotional distress that they caused me.